Hi, this is Alan Gassman. The video you are about to see is an interview of Michael Blasberg, who is a third generation Jewish funeral director. I asked Michael what an estate planner needs to know about Jewish funerals, and in fact, what the friends of a family would need to know about Jewish funerals. Michael is extremely dedicated and very, very articulate. Please enjoy this interview and let Michael know any questions you might have. blasbergm@nsmg.com. Thank you for watching. This is Alan Gassman, and I am here with Michael Blasberg, and we are going to talk about Jewish funerals and what advisors need to know about situations where there has been a death in a Jewish family, and what traditions, what protocols, and what rules can apply. And Michael, you have a tremendous background in this area, overseeing a considerable operation in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your organization so that the attendees know where you're coming from?
Yes. So as Alan said, number one, thank you, Alan, for inviting me to speak. My name is Michael Blasberg. I'm a third generation funeral director. We're part of North Star Memorial Group, which is a national company. All of our chapels will be able to help in this planning, not only at the time of need, but pre-planning. I think that's really the audience, are planners. So that's really what we're going to discuss. I think as a Jewish funeral home, we have customs that are different, but at the same time, we're all the same. The need is the same. People need to be protected. The families need to have it made easier on them. And that's what we'll talk about as well. But I can go into some of the customs, some of the traditions. So a few things that we do differently than others. But then again, within our religion, there's different practices that people may have, customs from their homes, what they do. So in a Jewish funeral, a traditional Jewish funeral, I don't like to call it Orthodox. What we do, we pick and choose anyway, in our life. What do we want to observe? But an Orthodox person would want everything to be like this. They'd want no embalming. We came from the earth. We go back to the earth. We believe that the fluids that make up our body are parts of our soul. So we don't want to introduce additional fluids. For preservative purposes, we want to go back to the earth as quickly as possible. A wooden casket because it came from the earth. We would do what we call tahara, which is a ritual purification. We don't do it. The Chevra Kadisha, which is a religious group, performs that ritual. It's a ritual. It's only done by Orthodox men and women, women for women, men for men. And we would wear a shroud, which is a Jewish burial garment, a white garment. We all came to the world in the same way. We leave the same way. And you would have a shomer, which is a man that is praying for the soul of the person until they're able to go to the final resting place. So as far as an Orthodox person, that's what they're going to want, burial in the ground. I think I recall hearing on some of your videos before with the Orthodox community, you had a few Orthodox rabbis on. There was nobody that ever said you can't do this. It's more about superstition. And you'll still hear that. And the reality of that is, I believe in the book, I think it's called the Zohar, which is interpretations of the law. It tells you to go out and buy a grave and have a long, healthy life, because you should have, where you're going. Get rid of that, put it behind you. It's there, you don't need to know. And they didn't have funeral homes really then, so it really covers everything. And the pre-planning is the big thing. You want to help your family financially, emotionally. You want to know that you're going to get what you want. Sometimes you have families where the children have different religious opinions. Well, mom wanted this, so let's just do what mom wanted. So you don't have that fighting between siblings. You don't have to make a decision. It's been made for you. As far as the cemetery, again, it should only be in the ground, burial in the ground, traditionally. Now, we offer, as well as other cemeteries, mausoleum space, private estates with private mausoleums. But you have to pick and choose what it is that you want to follow. I think that everything can be done. And if you have something special, you can always do it. Tell us about it. If we don't know it, it's a custom from your home, we'll do it. We'll learn about it. We're always willing to help. As far as the needs at the cemetery, we talked about the hospital may have there's religious practices that aren't part of what we would do. The Chevra Kadisha would know, your rabbi would know, customs. Anything more specific that we would want to know about, always talk to your rabbi. Always talk to him. And we're here just to help. We'll do whatever we need to do to help. We'll work with the rabbis. There's never been anything that we couldn't do that somebody's wanted. But the tradition is pretty easy. No embalming, wooden casket in the ground, tahara, the ritual, the shomer, and then the cemetery and the monument. Again, some people have different requirements based on what they're used to from their countries, from their families' backgrounds, and we do it all. I don't think there's anything that can't be done.
So, Michael, from the moment of death to a burial, how long would that normally be for a Jewish family versus a typical non-Jewish family? And how would the Sabbath influence scheduling?
Well, someone that's traditional, meaning more observant or orthodox, it should be as quickly as possible. The halachic law allows for the family, the immediate family, to travel in. Maybe they're in Israel. It may take them a day or so to get here. As far as the Sabbath, obviously we can't do it on that Saturday, Friday evening and Saturday. So it's really only a day, but then there's times that you have holidays that fall, so back to back. So really no undue delay, but as quickly as possible for a more observant family. The non-Jewish community, some of our Latin funeral homes, it could be a week, only by choice. Not that it can't be done, but it's by choice of the family and what they prefer, what they follow.
Now, what if somebody wants to be buried up in New York? They die in Miami, they want to be buried in New York, but they can't be embalmed. How does that work?
Well, there's practices and procedures that the airlines allow. We do that all the time. It's quite common, the Northeast, even around the world. We ship to Israel. We've shipped and had people brought back into our care from Europe and all that. So it really depends on the airlines, but there are practices that can be done without having to embalm on the short term, for short-term preservation, just to prevent the sanitary areas of the airplane, to keep it clean. And it's easy to do. It's easy to get done.
And somebody accompanies the body on the flight?
No, not necessarily, because the requirements are different. Our timing is different. You can. There has been many instances that's been done, but that's not typical. But yes, it can be done.
And then the typical traditional, I guess, pine wood coffin, is that ever fancied up, or is it to be a modest coffin as part of the tradition?
Well, tradition really just calls for an all wood construction casket now. That ranges from pine up to mahogany, but someone that's Orthodox is going to be more simple, plain. They do the same thing. So it's just the requirements of the more traditional families to keep it simple. But as long as it's all wood, it meets the requirements of a traditional Jewish burial. Even the
Okay.
glues that are used on those caskets are parov, so there's no animal fats that are used in the caskets and no metal.
What are the traditions and beliefs that one may see if you go to a conservative Jewish funeral? What would you expect? How might it be different than just a typical American funeral?
Well, I think in the non-Jewish community, it's more common to have open caskets, long visitations, even at night, especially in the Latin community. In the Jewish community, as we were saying, it's a little bit quicker. Caskets aren't typically open. That doesn't mean that they never are. It's just that more traditional would not have it open. The person wouldn't be viewed, especially by the public. Maybe the family for an ID purposes. But again, it's all really directed by what the family wants. We're here to serve the family.
And then the communications with the family, friends, and even professionals. Do you want to talk a little bit about what sitting Shiva means and what that tradition entails?
So Shiva means seven. So traditionally, someone would sit 7 days. A more observant person would observe for 30 days, maybe even the whole year. They wouldn't go to a wedding, no loud music. That's for the year. The 7 days is more traditional. People might sit on a bench, a Shiva bench, something that's lower to the ground, just to be different. Um, the family, the community sends food in. A rabbi might come and lead services, but again, there's such a wide range. Some people may choose not to sit. Some people may choose to sit 3 days, but traditionally it's seven. At the funeral, you would either see the immediate mourners would wear a ribbon that would be cut to show an outward sign of mourning. They might cut their own clothing, depending on how traditional the family is. At the burial, the community, the friends, the family help bury the person because it's something you're doing for that, meaning that they place the earth on the grave by hand. You're doing that for that person that can't be paid back. And usually the first shovel is inverted because you're trying to show a hesitancy to what you're doing, but it's something out of respect to the person that is being laid to rest.
Okay. So when they're sitting Shiva, they are accepting guests,
Yes,
to extend
some
condolences.
people come to do that. The community gets together. So yes, they accept guests. There's some families that I don't want to do that. I just want to be alone. I want us to be together. So normally people would come, they'd bring things, they would send platters to the house. You're taking care of your community, really. It's your friends, but the whole thing was the community about it. But not everybody does it as written. They choose to do it the way they feel is best for them. But in a traditional Orthodox way, yes, you would do that.
Okay. And then when is the gravestone put on and what is the unveiling?
So a stone typically is put on at the anniversary of the death, and that's the unveiling. You'd put a cheesecloth over it and unveil it. But there are customs that it's done after 30 days. Now, that's a little more difficult to do, but it can be done. Again, that's a custom of that individual, but not everybody is following the same traditions.
Okay. And then what are you seeing the more Reformed Jewish community do with funerals? Are they typically taking the conservative route, or are there trends?
I think, yes, they're more conservative. Rabbis a little more conservative, but the Reform and conservative movement is starting to blend together a little bit more. So a rabbi that's in a Reform synagogue may be more traditional in his thinking. There may be, he or she, there's many women rabbis, so it really is dictated by the congregants and how they want their rabbi to behave, follow.
Okay.
And all those things that we talked about, they do. We use Israeli earth to place on, but everybody does pretty much the same as far as the burial. There'll be people that place earth with the shovel, some won't, at the same funeral.
Right. What about donation of body parts? What is the Jewish law on that?
I can't answer that. I do not know the answer to that, but I do know that look, I'm an organ donor. Why? Because, God forbid, I would need, my family would need, my friends would need, anyone in the community. How can you hope someone else would do something for you that you're not willing to do for them? So that's a personal thing. I know in the more observant community, we did hear on one of your videos as well that they approved of it, but I believe that you have to know who it's going to. It's not just for medical research. I do also know that if someone was ill and needed to have an amputation of a limb, the tradition they would do is place the limb in the grave, because we believe in being whole, or as whole as we can be in the best way that we can be. But I can't answer the rabbinical opinion on, other than what I heard on some of the rabbis that had spoken to some of your other casts.
Right. Okay, so besides not planning in advance, which I'm sure happens quite often, what are the biggest mistakes that people make, and how do people stumble and fall so we can warn them in advance?
I think that there's really not many. It's all about communication. Talk to your family. You could talk to your attorneys, you could talk to this, but ultimately talk to your family and plan. Why not plan? Everything that we do in life is about planning. We plan for all kinds of weddings, education for our kids. Why not take that out of the worries? Let them have no worries. Let's just do what Dad planned.
It's a lot of clients will say, I don't want to talk to my kids about my death. And then the kids say, I don't want to talk to my father or my mother about her death, but they're sure talking to me about it. Is there any Talmudic wisdom or, common sense advice you can give us on that sort of conversation, which can be a painful one?
Well, I can't answer Talmudic questions. I'm not educated to that degree. But again, regardless of the degree of religion, we're people. We need to communicate with it. It may be hard, but then you say, boy, I'm happy that they talked to me about that. I don't have to figure out what I should do, what's right. Because again, what's right for the child may not necessarily have been what the parent or spouse, or God forbid anyone else, would have wanted. So the Talmud says plan. So how do you plan without telling somebody that you planned something?
Then
What's
how
the
do you
point of having something if you're not going to let someone know that you have it?
Right. And are there any good words of advice on how to help a family with the grieving process? Because certainly you spend a lot of your time talking to people who are early on in that grieving process, and then you know, with your great personal skills and the status you have in their lives, I assume you see them a year later quite often for the unveiling. So, you know, what would your advice be to an estate planning lawyer who, you know, can't quite get used to the fact that you're having to talk to people a lot who just lost their father, their mother, their wife, their husband? What do you say? What are the best words, or what's your wisdom on that for us?
I think it's really difficult to tell somebody what they should and shouldn't do, although we know it may be better. But again, communicate, listen. Maybe don't speak so much, listen. Your clients, I think you would normally know a client over a period of time, and you get to know them. You may even get to know their family. As far as a grieving process, that's an individual thing because grief is so different between each one of us. But you have to be there. You know, just listen. Give them your ear. It's easier said than done, but it's all about just being there to support people. Maybe they can't take care of them. You know, bring them food every now and then. Check in on somebody. Again, it's easier said than done, but it's hard to tell you what's going to be best for this person because it's so different than the previous one, and it'll probably be much different than the next one.
Right.
But communicate. That's all.
Yeah. So my last question, I'm just interested in the family history. So your grandfather was a funeral director and your father was a funeral director?
Yeah, my grandfather was a funeral director, my father, my brother, me. You know, growing up, people always said, well, are you going into business with your father? I think that's a normal question in a family business. Never really gave it much thought about anything else, but I love what I do. I love the people. It's people. Your business is no different. There's a lot of people that do the same thing. And when I say you, it's whoever that person is speaking to them. There's a lot of people that do the same thing that we both do. They're coming to you for whatever reason. They heard about you. They learn to respect you and trust you. And that's really what it's about. You know, respect and trust. That's the only thing that makes us different. In the business, right. You know, what makes me different? Our business, we do the same thing, but it's our team. You know, we try to find the best people that think the same way. You can't teach people to be things that they're not. So, right. You know, and for me, I'd rather have a difficult family than an easy family. And why? Because it's a challenge to earn their trust and their respect.
Oh, that's great.
That. Yeah, I love that. I love going out in the community and seeing people. My wife laughs at me. What are you doing? Working the room? You know, I walk around and say hello to everybody. But it's a people business.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, this has been a really lovely visit. I've enjoyed it a lot. I've learned a lot. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Anything that comes to mind for those of us who are estate planners who just really don't know the area like you do?
Well, I mean, you're estate planners, you're planners, right? So you know the value of planning. The needs of the people, you learn. You'll find someone that you can establish a relationship with, a funeral home, funeral director, work with them. Because if you're going to refer people to do something, you want to have confidence in the person that you're referring to because it falls back on you. It's just, the benefit of planning. It's so important. How many times God, I wish people say to you all the time, I'm so happy that mom and dad did this. It made it so much easier. Forget the financial part of it. I mean, that's a huge thing, but forget that. It's just the ease for the family. The burden is taken off of them. They don't have to make any decisions.
Beautiful.
You did it.
Wonderful. Okay, so Michael, what is your email address for people who might have questions?
It's Michael, Michael .Blasberg, BLASBERG at N as in North, S as in Star, M as in Memorial, G as in Group.com. That's Michael.Blasberg at NSMG.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Beautiful, and I'm sure I'm going to have some. Not to
I'm
mention
here.
Great. Well, thank you so much. You've been very gracious. I've really enjoyed getting to know you before filming this, and I know we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Alan. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye. Take care.